Here's a somewhat bizarre story. An author by the name of Nick Cole says that major Hollywood studio told him that they quote unquote wouldn't produce content for white Christian trash. So there's two things interesting here. Number one, it's like they don't want white Christians' money. Well, actually, they do, but it's like they don't want to create content for them. And the second is like the casual racism that gets thrown in there. The trash part. Like, why do they do this? Like, it's a legitimate question, you know? Because here's the thing, and I understand, right? Like, right now in society, it is politically correct to say any negative thing you want about Christians or white people. But why do you have to, though? Like, what? Why do you need to? This is what I don't understand. Because in Romania, I can say a lot of bad things about a lot of ethnicities. Okay, we don't have hate speech laws to the same extent that you have in the West, but I just don't. I don't feel the need. It's like, so if you're a sociopath, I guess you should be on the far left because a lot of horrid shit becomes permissible. I mean, if this is the way the guy speaks, obviously his mindset is a lot more telling. But why does it happen? And the reason it happens is because this particular group of people, I guess white Christians, but white people in particular, they just take it, right? Like they don't boycott, they don't choose not to go to the business, they don't choose to go in front of the business and picket, right, with signs and try to damage the company PR, which is why people do it, right? If you try to pull this shit to Muslims, if you try to even remotely pull the same shit to China, you'd be out of a business. Like you'd immediately have like people in front of your business protesting. No one would go and watch your stuff. No one would buy your product, right? China is strong. I mean, it's getting to the point where progressive corporations that stand against racism and they stand against Asian hatred and blah blah blah, they've no problem with doing business with China. They have no problem in not calling out the abuses that were done against the people of Hong Kong. Why? Because China is strong, right? If you piss off China immediately, they will not buy your product. So all of a sudden, all these corporations are, when it comes to politics, very outspoken in the West, though. Extremely outspoken, because there's no consequence. Kind of makes me wonder, like, if these people are not sociopathic with all the races, but they only say these bad things because it's acceptable to say against white people. Like, there's no consequence. You know, like, maybe they have this level of racism against other ethnicities. It's just that if they were to externalize it, then there would be consequences. But here, like, they just don't care. Doing business with Saudi Arabia, all these corporations that are, oh my god, pro-LGBT and for democracy and whatnot, all of a sudden, oh, Saudi Arabia has money. Yeah, so this is why they get to say it. And the reason people believe it, and they believe what Nick Cole claims, is due to the way of the vibe that you get from these corporations. I mean, you look at the people on Twitter, you look at the people when they do various interviews, especially like the person who made the new Mortal Kombat movie, and is saying, oh, well, we couldn't have Johnny Cage. Like, Johnny Cage is a white guy. Can you imagine casting a white guy as a protagonist? Oh, Dios mío, right? So that's the culture. It's systemic. It is systemic. Now, to me, I don't care, right? It doesn't bother me. But at the same time, why would I pay money to a person that literally hates me? Like, use that money that I pay him so that he can fuel more of his hatred towards me. I don't want that, you know? Like, not to mention, like, these people should live based on their ideology. Like, if they don't want, as they claim here, white Christian trash to go see their movie, how can they sleep with white Christian trash money? Like, can you imagine what you would do to him? I don't want to inflict that level of suffering on a human being to know that some of the food he puts on the table comes from people he doesn't like. No, like, that would be like blood money. No, so I need to help him. I need to make him sure that he lives a pure life, deprived of my evil dollars, right? But, like, here's an interesting thing. And this is something that really caught my attention. Because, like, this, rhetoric coming from the elites, meh, whatever. It's kind of interesting because I don't really see this rhetoric coming from the random people on the forum. Like, most people get along, at least on the internet, but then you have like the unhinged elites, the millionaires and the billionaires, like Bernie Sanders likes to call them. And they're the ones that are acting like with this level of unhingedness. People thought it's Disney, but apparently it's not Disney and it's not ABC. I don't know why they immediately thought of Disney, like maybe because of Star Wars. I've no clue. I think it's like the research that people affiliated with Disney did. It's like, oh, if you don't like Star Wars, you're far right or some shit like that. It's just like bizarre nonsense. Like they even had like this conspiracy theory page where they linked various people that talk to each other, and it all connected to Steve Bannon. You know, like Steve Bannon was puppeteering everyone on the YouTube and was having like this grand conspiracy theory in order to take down Star Wars, the IP. Bizarre people, like, man, Jesus, you know? So I guess like this is why people would think it's Disney. It's like, well, why are you associated with the person that is so deranged to think such a thing? Like, these people just don't like the movie. Holy shit. But this is something that I found incredibly interesting, right? So there are guidelines, apparently, if you're an author and you want to publish a movie, and I was unaware of it. Now, probably different studios have different guidelines, but this is like the one, I believe it's from ABC, right? So if you want to publish a movie with ABC, you need to follow at least 3 of the following guidelines. Now, the reason I was shocked is because I know that if you want to sell a movie in China, you also need to follow a couple of guidelines. So, for example, you're not allowed to show, I believe, skeletons. You're not allowed to have LGBT characters. You must have at least one Chinese actor and film at least one scene in China. Like, it's very bizarre, right? And a lot of this is why, like, a lot of movies, in fact, I can't think of a single blockbuster movie that has an LGBT character in it. But if you look at TV shows, I can't think of a single TV show that has LGBT characters in it. So you get like this weird disparity, all of it because China pays the homophobia tax, right? Now, I was shocked to see that in the West you have a similar thing, except it doesn't come from the government, it comes from the corporations. So apparently if you want to release a movie, you need 50% or more. Like, this is funny, you know, it's 50% or more. Like, it's not around 50%, no, like 50 or more. Regular and recurring written characters which come from, quote-unquote, underrepresented groups. Well, hold on, if every single movie is going to represent these characters, aren't they going to become at one point represented groups? You know, like, here's a tough question. Who's more powerful, an aristocrat or a peasant? And the answer is like, depends. Under the communist revolution, I would say the peasant. I wouldn't want to be an aristocrat during a communist revolution. So like the idea is that you can overthrow the current establishment to the point where you still have oppression. It's just like the other way around. I mean, like, Christians used to be oppressed under the Roman Empire until they became the dominant force, and then they oppressed everyone else that wasn't a Christian. It happens a lot through human history. So I'm just asking the legit question, like, when is it that the groups become represented? 50% or more of regular and recurring actors from underrepresented groups. Secondary characters, meaningful inclusion of underrepresented groups. This actually means, like, meaningful inclusion means you have to treat the characters with respect, right? So you can't have the wife beat, well, I guess the husband beater drunk gay person, right? Because that is not meaningful inclusion. If you want to have like the drunk husband that's the wife beater, you need to have a straight cisgender white man. This is exactly what they mean. This robs the underrepresented groups of character, because being a human means you have positive and negative traits. No, seriously, like, think about it. Every single gay LGBT person you see in TV shows is usually a role model. And this is by design. This is what the corporations ask. It's not that the writer doesn't think about creating something more complex. No, like, they are forced by the corporation, top down, like, this is how you need to represent it. In fact, if you look at the BBC, Idris Elba is not good enough. Like, the chief diversity officer of BBC said that Idris Elba isn't authentic black. And this is what they're talking about, right? Like, it's not meaningful inclusion. Like, you need to have diversity as a stereotype. This creates boring stories. And the author of that particular show where Idris Elba plays said that they didn't create the character as a black person initially, which is actually true. Like, if you know anything about Hollywood and how it works, they don't talk about the race of the characters anymore. Like, they will create a movie and they would have like placeholder names, like this is Jane, this is Bob, this is Bill. And after the script gets approved, then they start doing, it's like, all right, we need like 50% more, recurring written characters from underrepresented groups. So all of a sudden, Bob becomes the gay black person, right? Like, this is how they do it. And I feel like it robs the art from people. This is why I prefer Korean movies, or I like to watch even like Chinese films, or like I really love the old Kung Fu Chinese movies. I grew up with them. I really enjoyed them. Older movies, I recommend them, and anime, because they don't deal with this bullshit. Like, this is not art anymore. This is manufacturing. You can't put soul and creativity into this. And this is not the first time in human history where it happens, okay? If you look at the medieval time and you see how people used to draw, it's completely subpar based on how people in ancient Greece used to view art. And the reason for this is not that the people within medieval time didn't know how to draw beautiful pictures. Is that they were constrained by the ideology, by the Christian ideology, on how they're supposed to paint the paintings and what they are allowed to draw. And only when Renaissance comes and finally the shackles and the constraints of the ideology gets removed, that we see beautiful paintings, that we see masterpieces and beautiful works of art. Until then, it's just ideological suppression. This is how Jesus looks like. This is how you need to depict people. And the reason they were doing it is because they believe that humanity should be humble. We are the children of God and we have sinned, and as such, we need to be humble. So drawing a beautiful, like muscular build type of person, that wouldn't show modesty, that wouldn't show, that would be vanity, right? So that's why they were focusing on creating art that looked like that. And again, when Renaissance comes up, like all that horseshit is being washed away. And I feel that we're going through another period of oppression, not by a religion this time, but by an ideology which has infected all the institutions that create art, at least the major ones. And due to the fact that we live at a time where centralization happens, like Disney buys everything, they're buying Marvel, they're buying all these other smaller companies. And you have like all the power of culture concentrated within a couple of companies, meaning it's a lot easier to control art. You get this. And it's like, this is why you get woke, go broke, right? First of all, the mentality, it's like, white Christian trash. But what's worse than the mentality, in my opinion, and this is what the article should focus on, is like the list of things that are required in order for you to have a good movie. Like with this list, you can't make a historical film. You can't, It allows you to create, like, for example, the adventures of Shaka Zulu, right? Because everyone is black there, so it fits, it's 50% or more. But it wouldn't allow you to create, like a historical movie, the suffering of Eastern Europeans under communism, right? Because all of a sudden you're going to have a lot of diversity over there that doesn't make sense within the time period. It's why they actually cast, a black woman as a queen and Queen of England or whatnot. I guess this shows that black people being aristocrats, they weren't really oppressed. Or every oppression that the United Kingdom did in the past, all the imperialist oppression, I guess were done by also the black people in power, huh? No, seriously, they changed the Lady Britannia coin in order to make her look like a black woman and stuff. And it's like, okay. I guess that's a way to view it. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section.